I like to teach people, there are a couple ways that people teach how you should start the bar off the ground. For the vast majority of people, starting with what's called a low hip start works a lot better, and I find this especially for people who do CrossFit. The reason being, it means that your pull off the ground will look the least like a deadlift, which is important. If you start off the ground the way in the old days Olympic lifters started like this, and then they just kind of shift to this position, that makes that shift really easy. And then you move on. The problem with this, of course, is that that's how you deadlift, right? I mean, you deadlift like this. And so that means you're now learning two exercises that are really similar, but different. And that is bad. You never want to combine how you're learning your Olympic lift with something that's really like an Olympic lift, sort of, but not quite. Because then you're never going to actually get your brain to figure both out well. Instead, the way a lot of Olympic lifters are starting now, especially on the world stage, is with a really low hip start. Now, the bar here is over the base of my toes, my knees are over the bar, and my hips are pretty darn low. This means you're not going to feel very strong coming off the ground because it's weird. It's a weird place to start. But it doesn't matter. You don't need to be strong off the ground. Even people who are really, really technically efficient on clean and jerks are still nowhere near on a clean and jerk what they could deadlift. So getting the bar off the ground, it doesn't matter. You can get anything off the ground with this weirdo position. But what it does is it allows you to do a couple of things that are really helpful in getting things correct with Snatch. And that is you can start on your heels and lean back right from the beginning. This means you can have a slightly backwards trajectory on that bar the whole way. You're already on your heels, so you don't have to think like, okay, in the old start, you start this way, you're on the ball of your foot, and you have to shift to your heel, right here. How likely do you think it is, if I have my body weight or more on this bar, that I'm going to actually do that? Almost never happens. In real life, for the vast majority of lifters, what happens is you start on the ball of your foot, you stay on the ball of your foot, you're still there, and it flies forward. And that sucks, because then you're not going to catch that lift. So instead, most people now are starting back on their heel, you shift, you're on your heel, you move back, you're on your heel, and then you snatch. Think heels, heels, heels. All I really care about at the beginning is you start on your heel at the beginning with your hips kind of low so that you can lean backwards. And you're still on your heel when you get to the knee. You're still on your heel when you get the bar to your hip, and you explode. That's it. If you can do that most of the time, you're going to have a snatch that's going mostly in the right direction, and you'll get better and better and better. If you are not on your heels at the beginning, odds are you never will be again. So all I really care about right now is for you to get the bar down about mid-shin, over the base of your toe, start on your heel, and your hips are going to be lowish. I would like it if you can get down into, like, you know, a powerlifter squat. You know, like you're not deep down in the squat necessarily, but the top of your thighs are getting close to parallel with the ground. The more weight you have on the bar, the easier it is to get in this position. Yeah. Now, obviously, you're going to notice the flexibility requirements are getting a little heavier. Well, the bar is too far down. Because unless you got like really tiny plates. Like little kid plates. Little 2.5s. It would only be here. I mean, that's close to the river.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's a little better. There you go. So the places you're going to probably be the most inflexible that are going to matter for you with any Olympic lift is your glutes and your hamstrings and your ankles. So if you can get your butt more flexible, your hamstrings more flexible, and your ankles more flexible, which is just, you know, be on a step, you know, stretch, you can go a long way. If you're having trouble, just do what we did before, except start at the floor, move to the knee, go back down to the floor, move to the knee. That shift is not as hard as the other one, but it can be a little weird. just like before I said, you could think of the previous shift from the knee to the hip as being a shoulders forward, shoulders back motion. This one is more about your hips being really low, and now your hips being really high. Hips being really low, hips really high, all the while being on your heels. So you're down here, and then you shift up real high to get your knees out of the way. When you get to the knee, pause, no matter what you're doing, pause, and think, am I on my heels? If you're not on your heels, you've done something wrong. You can get the hips up a little higher. You're really good, and then you come up, so I don't want you to do that.
So, come up by straining my legs more?
Yes. Yeah, get your hips up high. So before, when you're moving from your knee to your hip, it was your hip doing all the work. Now, moving from the floor to the knee, it's your knee that's doing all the bending, for the most part. Your hip's not going to shift that much, but your knees shift quite a bit.
You're over the bar with your knee. Okay.
Yeah, you're starting with your knees over the bar, and then they come behind the bar.
Right, right.
The idea being, obviously, you don't want your knees in the way of the bar when the bar is coming up.
There you go.
That's a problem. Ooh, that was good. Yeah. Go ahead and put the bar back on the ground. Get the bar over the base of the head. There we go. And then bring your hips down a little bit. Nice. That is a much better start position. There we go. Yes.
Good with what? Difficult with weight. No, that's impossible.
Go ahead and stop at the knee. There we go. Now from here, remember, drag it back. This is all hips now. Good. That's good. I think. Go back down again. Reverse motion. Good. And then just squat down into it. Excellent. Nice. Yeah, that's good. Bars on the right spot. I like it. All right. I got good bar awareness.
Yeah, totally different. Yeah, especially the
yeah, you can scrub a lot of things. Just stay on your heels or good. Woo! Look at that man. Man's got a good snatch. That never gets old. There you go. Yeah. This is good. Okay, so one last thing about the technical stuff. Another way to think about the start position, there's a lot of things going on, so I don't want to overload the brain, but is just think about the bar as having a plane through it or a wall through it. Don't ever let your shoulders go through that wall at the beginning. The start position and at the hip position, your shoulders should be behind that wall. Now, at the knee position, it's through the wall. That's when you can stick your head through, you know, like the Kool-Aid man. But otherwise, you should always be behind it. At the beginning, especially, really, really be careful about that. If you start over the bar, you're going to end up on the ball of your foot inevitably. It's going to happen. And that means you're not going to get back on your heels, and that bar is going to be thrown forward. So at the beginning, keep your shoulders behind the bar a little bit, stay on your heels, get your hips down, and squat the bar up until it gets to the knee. Get the hips in. So right now, I would like to put a little weight on the bar so you guys can feel it out a little bit, and just take turns. Now, for just a moment, you're not going to be CrossFitters, which means I don't want to see a lot of high reps. You got to be like weightlifters here. You're going to take turns and watch each other, because it helps a lot to watch me correct people. I want you to do maybe 3 reps at a time. Anything more than 3, I don't know what you're doing. Part of this is because when you're learning technique, if you get tired, the technique goes out the window. And I don't want you drilling bad behavior. I want you drilling good behavior. So go ahead and we'll get a couple bars going. Even these technique bars are good too, because they won't be that heavy, which is good. But it's nice to be able to feel the start position with a little weight on the bar. If you don't have that, it feels fun. Well, I thought you were I would say come start.